continuation of the budget workshop regarding the Indian River County Sheriff's Office budget for fiscal year 2025-2026 will now be called to order. It is Monday, August 11, 2025, and 1 p.m. We'll begin with a moment of silent reflection for those members who are serving in the armed forces and our first responders, followed by an invocation by none other than Reverend Dale Gladding from the Risk Takers for Christ, and Commissioner Adams will have the honors of leading us in the pledge. Please rise.
I invite you to join me in prayer. Father God, on the night that your son was betrayed, he prayed what is known as his high priestly prayer. And he focused on two things. First, that you, the Father, would be glorified, and secondly, that your people would be unified. And so, Lord, we echo those two prayers here today, that you would be glorified in all these proceedings, all these discussions, all these decisions, and that your people would be unified. And Father, after the Last Supper, Christ went across the brook Kidron and entered the Garden of Gethsemane, where he prayed one last prayer, that your will, not his, would be done. And so we echo that prayer as well, that your will would be done, not ours. And again, that a spirit of unity would permeate not just this room, but our community. And we ask this all in the matchless name of our Savior, the Lord Jesus Christ. Amen.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Thank you all. Well, a little bit of a light turnout today. This is a continuation of the budget workshop. There'll be no voting taking place today. It is unprecedented. We will have consensus, but it was unprecedented to have a second workshop. I don't recall in recent history, I can go back 20 years, and we haven't had this type of event take place. But a lot of unprecedented things have gone through this year. We are in financial, while we are in good standing financially as a county, we are facing uncertain economic challenges and times throughout the next fiscal year. So we must be cautious. In doing so, we presented what we thought was as a board, as the county administrator, after several negotiations and discussions, had presented a reasonable, what we feel was reasonable for the budget for the sheriff. During that time, there were many incidents that took place. Again, the original budget workshop had a whole section for the union that was unprecedented. That was to all of us to be contacted. We also had some very interesting discussions during the budget workshop. It included a highly respected detective in my heart to bring a recycling toter down to the podium just as a, I don't know, flamboyant message. We heard from many individuals from the sheriff's office, many of which were known to me or previous colleagues. Some were not. Most were, though, the ones that spoke. And we heard about, we kicked the can down the road. We heard that they were told pound sand over the past few years. We also were told that there was many things that we overlooked or didn't do. We heard stories of deputies having to apply for governmental food assistance. We heard of individuals taking home school lunch remnants so they can feed their family. All very, we also got many pre-prescribed letters that people just signed with no intent on content, but that content was typed and handed out to public meetings. There were many public meetings, many videos. A lot of money was spent on these videos, I'm sure, because they were professionally done. And I have to tell you that it really did not bode well at the culmination when the sheriff got rather angry with us and was hitting the podium and then left and slammed the door. And then outside of this, which is on our surveillance cameras, he was high-fiving everybody who was here, speaking on behalf. And I understand that. I can understand that because they were in the balance of getting an increase. They deserve the increase. Let me be perfectly clear. They deserve the increase. I don't think you can put a dollar amount on what a deputy or your law enforcement officers deserve. But quite frankly, we have limitations. And they were tested, they were played in an emotional onslaught, making these 5 county commissioners, myself included, as ogres of indecent individuals, not appreciating law enforcement. They're next to me, the vice chairman, he's the former sheriff of this town. I served in the sheriff's office. To the extreme right, Captain Airman, he served in the fire service, had an admirable career for many years. I know my 2 colleagues to the left of me truly appreciate law enforcement and have done a lot with law enforcement to support law enforcement. So for anyone to characterize this commission as not looking at law enforcement needs favorably is unconscionable, unconscionable. No, we don't forget where we came from. The challenge is we have an obligation to the taxpayers, the people that are struggling, and we have an overall from 18,000 feet to look at over 170,000 citizens that are challenged and are recovering from a more uncertain financial situation between taxes, insurance, and a lot of day-to-day costs that have, we've just gone through a recessionary period. And we're not there yet, folks. We're doing well. But quite frankly, the way that this was presented to us with, I don't know for certain, I don't know if all of my colleagues were spoken with. The sheriff spoke to me once at my request. I asked him to come in. I asked him to present me the salaries, the information. He gave me the salary range. He did not give me the salary of what everyone was making. We work in an exact world. And if we have to do something, we need to base it on fact, not on garbage cans and number 10 cans and being told to be pound sand and letters and videos. And this is a factual decision. This is a workshop. Quite frankly, I understand the sheriff could not make it. We have a letter here. And I'll read the letter. I anticipated the sheriff to be here. After all, if we are negotiating and discussing, it's always good to have all parties present. But I understand that he has a commitment, and we honor that. The clerk of the court has a copy of the letter, but I will be happy to read it into the record. This is as follows, and this is a letter from the desk of Eric Flowers, Sheriff. Chairman Joseph Flesher and Board of County Commissioners. As the priority of government is public safety, I have every confidence the budget for Indian River County Sheriff's Office will be approved as submitted. As relayed in my letter of July 23rd, 2025, in good faith, I revised my original budget from $14,635,721 to $12,214,886, leaving both unfunded and deferred needs. While I anticipate it will not be necessary, any further cuts on your part will require written details of what items you choose not to fund in accordance with Florida State Statute 30.49. As you are likely aware, the Florida Chief Financial Officer, Blaise Ngolia, has recommended that all Florida government entities utilize a zero-based budget, a practice started at my very first budget submission as sheriff in 2021. Had Indian River County used the sound financial process of zero-based budgeting, it would have revealed the funds necessary to improve my budget are available. Recently, all Florida sheriffs, including myself, met with Governor Ron DeSantis and the CFO Ngolia. Their message was clear. Counties and cities need to start their zero-based budgeting process by funding public safety first, and then using the remaining dollars for the other expenses. I am sure I join many Florida residents in welcoming CFO Ngolia's revamp of the federal DOGE process into Florida's version. Unofficially titled Florida Agency for Fiscal Oversight, FAFO, also known as FAFO, and the plan to hold the counties accountable for their use of tax dollars. It is my understanding that the board is holding a continuation on July 9th, 2025, on a budget workshop. Today, August 11th, 2025, as I am sure that the board is aware that today is the first day of school for Indian River County. My team and I will be providing additional law enforcement coverage for the various schools throughout the day. Over the past several years, we have enhanced school safety on multiple fronts to include expanding our school resource team, adding explosive and contraband detection and canines, implementing metal detectors, and improving the threat alert systems. As you all well know, our children are the heartbeat of the future of the community. My multiple attempts to negotiate in good faith with the county administrator have been met with resistance and a clear lack of understanding of what public safety and priorities Governor DeSantis has set for local governments. The men and women of Indian River County Sheriff's Office, as well as the great people of our community, recognize the importance of the first responders and are continuing on the fund of our essential mission. Indian River County continues to be a great, safe place to work, to live, and to play because of the hard work of our first responders. Your sheriff, Eric Flowers, and duly signed and duly noted. He did leave out something about the amount of funds that have been allocated, earmarked for salaries and enhancement to deal with the 3 items that he wanted to deal with the salaries over the past few years. I believe that comes out to $21.8 million in addition that was earmarked.
In the past 4 years, the sheriff's budget has increased $21.8 million. And I can't speak for the first year, but I know the 3 following years, in each of the workshops, the reference was made that the priority was to address salary issues with deputies.
Well, with that case, does anyone have anything to present? Otherwise, I'm going to turn this over to the county administrator. Everybody's got their own microphone? Okay,
I'll talk about the letter later. Yeah, I think this is more important.
thank you. I give you County Administrator John Tikanich.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the board, members of the public. Just by way of some budget recap. I have it. Sorry. By way of budget recap, we held our July 9th budget workshop at which the Board of County Commissioners tentatively set the millage rates, but not the overall budgets. The presented budget included $83,646,672 for the sheriff's office, which is an increase of $4,734,717, or a 6% increase over the prior year's budget. So to your point, Mr. Chair, the discussion is not about reducing the funding of the sheriff's budget, but managing the amount of the increase. The board did request that I work to allocate additional funding to the sheriff without increasing the millage rate. And if the board will recall, during the meeting, we worked on doing that. Again, as you noted, the original request was for $93.5 million, which is an increase of 14.6 billion or 18.6% increase overall. At that workshop, we did, as I just explained, so I'll just go to the next bullet. So the revised budget, as we discussed at that meeting, it was roughly $6 million. It increased from 4.7, it was about $6,079,000, which would have provided the, in the interest of, as we talked about, as we looked at the pay raise scenarios, it would have provided a projected $9,000 across the board raises for deputies, $3,500 across the board raises for the civilians, and it would have left some additional funds for operating. So that increase was a 1.6% over the original recommended increase budget of the 4.7 million. On July 23rd, a revised request from the sheriff's office was received, the same day in which the sheriff and I met that morning, and it was for 91.1 million, which was a decrease, but it's still an increase of $12.2 million, or 15.5%. So just to review because the question has come, where did we get the $6 million from, or the additional funds, not 6 million, but the additional 1.3 roughly, is we were proposing to cut, and these are the cuts that made up for the roughly $1.7 million. Removing a full-time foreman from parks, full-time staff assistant from conservation lands, a guest services attendant from conservation lands. It was going to be reduced to a part-timer. The facilities master plan funding, bringing that in-house, working with our existing facilities manager and our John Evans, as well as Anthony Warren, our building and facility services director. reducing the amount of funding for the Humane Society, recognizing that animal sheltering was an issue that the county was going to be taking on, and recognize that the contract would probably not, for the whole year, would not need to be obligated. Court administration, they did send a revised budget request of $151, almost $152,000. We had met at the time with the hospital district. I mean, they still have to vote on their budget, but they have indicated if you recall, they were budgeting about $771,000 for mental health, related to mental health court. And they were at about 444 at that point, but they were looking to reduce the amount because as they assessed their priorities, and we had asked and requested that we split the amount, rather than asking the county just to pick up the amount entirely, because we fundamentally believe in mental health court. And I think that some of the data that's coming out and showing how it reduces rates of recidivism, provides these individuals, the services that they need. So we felt that was important to the criminal justice system as a whole. Removing a part-time recreation leader and building facility services, working with a position in public works, assessing, our positions and reclassing it to an assistant project manager. That removed about $124,000 out of the budget. And then leaving the crew intact, but removing the crew lead for Road and Bridge. As you know, 66, we've got Oslo, we've got these roads that we have to take care of more, as well as there's been a continuing, emphasis with the board and the residents about maintaining our road system, and we've been working, diligently on that. So we were removing the crew leader, and so that was the result of those funds. So what that did was, and please first recall that with the available tax growth, there's only an additional $8,681,000 of revenue coming into the general fund as a result of the increase in the tax roll. So the proposed increase to the general fund portion of the sheriff's budget was $5,579,982, which was 64.3%. The other amount was related to, that would be the optional sales tax for the radios and the vehicles. So it's the full amount that we mentioned. The sheriff's budget as a percent of the FY 25 general fund budget is 52.3%. You can see the BCC, if you look at the allocation, the difference between the board and the sheriff. I think it's important to note, overall, our general fund, if you recall, of every tax dollar that comes in, about 70% of it is related to state-funded mandates and funding our constitutional officers and those state agencies that provide services to our residents. From the courts to the state attorney's office, the public defender's office, guardian ad litem, and we also provide funds for New Horizon to help us, address those individuals suffering from mental health issues and need that, they may be Baker Acted. So again, 70%, and then out of that dollar, in reality, only 22 cents is what this board gets to work with to carry out all the other operations of the county. Just want to provide some context in there. And the sheriff's alone is 52.3%. Without belaboring this slide, this just shows at the beginning of the term and versus the actual last 4 years, the requests that have been approved, or the amounts that have been approved, $21.8 million. This does not reflect the sheriff's revised amount of 12.2, but the point being is there's been $21.8 million that this board has allocated. It's never, and you can see in years above, there's been a couple where it's been very slim or it's been reduced. And this board has done, $2.9 million in 22. And you provided $7.3 million of what, some of it was ARPA funds, but then you never reset. I think that's important. And then almost $5.8 million for the last 2 years. So the board has continued to, fund and demonstrate its commitment to public safety, specifically the sheriff's office. So the one, I just have these slides here because one of the conversations last meeting was, and we received data after that meeting, was, and I think the chair alluded to it, is we didn't get some specifics, but it was provided to us, but it was on the 10th. You know, in '23, this is a 3-year salary increase history. You can see it, there was a 7% for civilian and sworn, respectively $2,850 for civilian, $3,800 for sworn officers. Civilians in '24, $2,500 increase, 6%. For our deputies, a 14% increase, the average being $8,000. For sergeants, the average being $6,000, which is an 8% increase. Our lieutenants, 9% increase, with the average being $8,700. The other things that the sheriff's office did that year was they have progressively increased the pay, but this year, that year, they increased it to $50,619. They implemented a step plan, a pay for experience, and they fixed compression. So in the current fiscal year, they provided our civilian employees 5,000 or 5%, $2,400 on average. The sworn officers or deputies on average, that was 3%. The average amount was $1,950. The sergeants, 8%. The average was $3,275. And lieutenants, 9%. The average being $5,325. They did have to increase the deputy maximum pay in large measure as they increased the sergeant starting at max pay, as well as the lieutenants starting at, should say, max pay. They were trying to avoid the compression issue as they increased the one. So looking at this in totality for the last 3 years, as the board has discussed, we've provided, you have provided $21.8 million, and over the last 3 years, on average, civilian employees have received over the 3-year period a $7,750 raise. The deputies have received $13,750. The sergeants, $13,075. Lieutenants, $17,125. The proposed increases, per the email received from the CFO, is the civilians receiving a $5,395 raise, 10%, and there is a longevity bonus depending on where you lie in your tenure service. I think it's somewhere around $1,200, $1,300. For the sworn deputies, a 13% increase is proposed at $8,291. Again, this is the average that was provided to us. Sergeants, $9,447. Or 11%, and lieutenants, $11,265, or 11%. So with that, we proposed that $6,779,000, and the total proposed budget for fiscal year 25-26 is $598,270,347, a decrease of $72,657,896 for the overall budget for the county. For the general fund, the proposed budget is $156,982,168, an increase of $276,224. I should say recommended proposed. And for the municipal service tax and unit, the recommended proposed budget is $55,757,511, a decrease of $1,497,795 rather. The transportation fund, the proposed recommended budget is $27,075,755, a decrease of $1,606,202. So with that, we can return to the board at this point in time to consider any proposed changes to the tentative budget.
Thank you. Anyone have any questions?
Mr. Chair, one of the questions that I had, I didn't see it in the letter. So essentially, and I don't know if his CFO is here, essentially, does this letter mean if he's not getting what amount, then what? I don't see where it's leading us to what direction.
So, Mr., I'll take a shot at the letter, but
Because
it's,
he gave the statute.
yeah.
Right.
And
There is a procedure. Oh, please go ahead.
It wasn't very,
Yeah, he is asking for the 12.2 million, and he's asking that if any cuts are made, that details of what was chosen not to be funded be provided in a letter in accordance with Florida State Statute 30.49. It's premature at this time. That happens once the board actually approves the budget. So the next slide will show on September 10th, the board will set the millage rate and review the proposed budget, but it's on September 17th, you actually approve it, and we would put together a letter, based on the level of details that the sheriff's office and the CFO have provided us. The statute calls for sub-object level, but they only fund at the object level.
Okay. But it talks about the cuts. The fact is, it's not a cut, it's a reduction in his request. Overall, it's an increase. So I think it's disingenuous to say we're cutting his budget, we're reducing his request, but his overall budget is in fact going up over 6%.
7.6% as if we left off where we were at the last meeting.
Correct. So we should be clear that we're not cutting anybody's budget, we're reducing requests, but we're actually increasing last year's budget significantly.
That's correct. It's the request that's being cut, and historically, that has happened since time began. You have to meet what has been collected in ad valorem taxes in order to ensure that all services are treated fairly and they are funded as best they can with the funding request. Historically, a couple of weeks before the game is on at the workshop, there's some discussions with the county administrator. Again, looking at the overall numbers from Office of Management and Budget, knowing where we can meet and where we can greet. And at that point, there is some further discussion, and throughout the years, we've seen individual constitutional offices reduce their budget requests so it will be met with the available budget. This did not happen this time, and I don't know how many of you can recall of how many conversations you may have had with the sheriff. I know that I had one at my request to try to see where we can go and perhaps give the county administrator a little bit more insight as to what had to be negotiated. I understand those few negotiations did not go too well. They were very brief, and there was not that much work involved with any type of negotiation of any sort. In the letter, it states that there was a $12 million plus budget request. That's the addition to the budget. And at this point, I'd like to point out, again, we are providing service for the greater good of over 170,000 citizens in many different areas, and we have all of our constitutional offices to be concerned about, and the small amount of that total budget is what we have to work with the 1,000 plus employees that serve this county. So at this point, I just wanted to ask the Office of Management and Budget what the actual number, because again, what was the actual number above last year that we have to be able to work with as a county administrator and as a board?
Yeah, it's $8,681,000 first bullet, and 310 is for a general fund.
Say it so the microphone could hear it again.
$8,681,310 of revenue in the general fund is being realized as a result of the increased tax roll.
And that was to serve all of the constitutionals and our immediate budget too, for the greater good of the citizens of Indian River County. So we were on the upside of $8,681,310. That's a little short of the proposed request by the sheriff. By how much?
Yeah, it's 4 million, maybe 3.6 million.
So if we had done as is being recommended as to satisfy the sheriff's budget request first, what would we have to ensure that all services in Indian River County, including all of our constitutional offices, were able to serve at the level in which the citizens deserve?
I don't believe there's a general fund function that would not have been impacted, to include, dealing with issues like our Department of Natural Resources that deals with our environmental, protection, Public Works that deals with road maintenance, traffic signalization, doing traffic studies, monitoring the traffic systems throughout the county, Parks and Recreation, reduction in programming, that we literally have an intergenerational program center, because we offer intergenerational programs from the youth all the way up to our most older citizens. Community services, in terms of, while they get a portion of the general fund for the purposes of admin, but it doesn't cover everything. So it would challenge us to be able to administer some of the programs that we have from housing. We're not receiving the full amount of money that we get from the SHIP program, the State Housing Initiative Program. This year, they raided that trust fund, so they reduced that amount. It would affect libraries, a critical, civic point. I mean, we have the law library that resides in the main library as well as in the courthouse. But there's just a lot of functions that would be impacted, that we would have to come up with that $3.6 million. And to be honest, it's a recurring cost. So you would really be looking at employees, and you'd have programs that wouldn't have employees to be able to undertake them, to manage it. The other thing, as I was thinking about this is, if the county's going to be able to, at some point in the future, with the 2030 mandate of septic to sewer, we can't use, utility revenues to create potentially a grant program. That's completely out the window, because that would be general fund funded.
The sheriff mentions a state directive. You just mentioned a huge state directive, and that was septic to sewer. Not to compare, but do you have the estimated cost of what we are facing with that mandate within the next 5 years?
So if we look countywide, it's estimated, somewhere around 25,000, 26,000 septic tanks. Now, the mandate is that where central sewer is available, that we should be connecting those homes, residents and businesses, to the central system. We have some places where it is available, and we are working. We are also, if you recall, I think we're on our 4th septic to sewer grant, trying to help communities out, because it's not an inexpensive proposition. Back when we met with the city of Sebastian, my recollection is we were talking about $500 million of public infrastructure to be able to expand plants, run water lines or sewer lines. And then there's still the component of whether or not on the private side is a small lift station required in addition to the connection fees. So it's not an inexpensive proposition or mandate that's placed on us. And again, 70% of our general fund budget is comprised of mandates, in terms of our funding our constitutionals, our state agencies, and things of that nature.
So we're looking at $500 million in a mandate, a legislative mandate that is a directive. It's not an ask.
In the alternative, if we're not able to provide central sewer, and we are going to have to get strategic, residents will be required to replace their septic systems with a enhanced nutrient-reduced septic system, which is really basically has 2, if you call, what are they, wells or containers, if you will, with actually, some of them may require like a little lift pump to get it into the drain field, but to reduce the nutrient load into nearby water bodies.
So it's estimated to cost the individual ratepayer $15,000 to $20,000 to do that.
That's a rough estimate today when the
That's
demand is not
today's
with us.
prices.
Yes.
In addition, for the rest of the remaining infrastructure, we're facing a large undertaking. I wanted to bring it up because I know the sheriff in his request, he said that we should just eliminate the libraries and services and what we're doing. Think about that for a minute. Eliminate the quality of life that we have and compare it to giving deputies an increase. He said, do away with it, because it's not going to be here anyway. I do remember those words. I didn't take it as a tacit comment. It was strong.
I would say from the dais, it was equally strong where, you know, Commissioner Lohr and others pointed out that with the amount, and actually asked the sheriff, when we estimated the average amount that could be provided to each deputy, I think it was $9,000 and $3,500 to the civilians, and the question is, you would walk away from that?
So you're stating, and yes, I think I was at the meeting. So if we were to meet it with the suggested number, that we would be able to have the sheriff afford a very reasonable increase at this time?
That's my belief based on, and they've not countered, you know, and I've met with the sheriff, initiated contact in each meeting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 times.
And one of the biggest comments the sheriff had is that the floodgates open, that the deputies are leaving. I asked him for that number, and he doesn't have that number.
In the last email that I received regarding the breakdown of number of deputies, I believe the number was that there was 9 vacancies from the CFO.
And he stated here that he did not have vacancies. So again, like much of the information that I recanted in the beginning from the workshop about deputies applying for food stamps, and I really don't think that that's taking place, okay? Again, it might have sounded well for the public to hear that we're just about losing it, but I have to say that this is one of the safest counties that I'm aware of. I do travel and see others, and I think we have the finest in law enforcement. Technology, we definitely probably are beyond what others are, and maybe that's one of the reasons why that kicking the can down the road because of an implementation of other services other than the salaries is why we're where we're at right now. I believe when you say kicking the can down the road, I think the sheriff's office had quite a few cases of cans in order to make this happen. And this should have been done over a period of time. And I did discuss it with the sheriff and ask him if he would implement this in a few stages. And he said he was not interested in that. And very clear. Had you done the same thing?
I asked repeatedly
About
about the
splitting it?
opportunity to phase in his plan as it relates to the full funding of the increases to the point where I mentioned that we would come to the board in agreement with doing it over, 2-year period, do partial this year, and then the subsequent next year. And I received the same response. He was not interested in doing that.
I mean, there's You know, there's an element of negotiation, there's an element of understanding. And again, what burden could be placed upon the taxpayer that is struggling as we speak, right now? And how much more burden can we place upon their shoulders? Anything?
I'll be glad to chime in. Okay, let me get my notes here.
Bring it.
I'm going to start with I've seen all the facts. We've seen all the stuff that we've had at the past budget meeting and in conversation with our county administrator. And I think you've done a sensational job and been as fair as possible. And you understand the concerns of not only the sheriff's office, but also the needs of the county and our emergency services. And it's a tough thing to do, but I think you've done very well, especially with the money we have. I think Chairman Fleischer and Commissioner Lohr have already summed up one point that I made, that Judge Hall made when I read the letter, that we are not reducing the sheriff's budget. His second sentence, says, relayed in my letter of July 23rd, in good faith, I revised my original budget from 14 million to 12 million. That makes it sound to the general public out there that his budget is 14 million, and we want to reduce it. So, I don't appreciate that. His budget is $78 million this year. He wants an additional 14.3, now to 12.2 on bottom. That's 90 to $93 million is what the sheriff's budget would go up to for the next fiscal year. So to say that, he's decreased his budget is not a fair statement. I've never heard him yet at one time mention $78 million. It's always been about the 14 and 12 million. About reduced, and that seems that's what the argument's over with. And I have an issue with that, but y'all have covered that. The next thing he says in the next paragraph is that CFO Ingolgolia recommend that all governments utilize zero-based budget practices, and the fact that they should make emergency responders, law enforcement, and fire rescue and other components, making the first block. I'm okay with that, and I'm sure we are too as a commission, to say we need to make sure that our emergency services are well funded and taken care of. I don't think anybody disagree with that. So that's, I would hope that every city and county in the state or in the nation does that. The zero-based budgeting thing, Kristen can answer that better than anybody on how we do it. I think we've done pretty well. How many consecutive years has our budget won awards? 40 years? We must not know what the heck we're doing,
3 years.
But I think we do a pretty good job. I think correct me if I'm wrong, isn't how we do budgets, and I don't know if you could explain it in a nutshell, versus zero-based budgets, so it's clear in the letter is basically a philosophy of how you manage how you do your budgeting, correct?
Zero base is starting from zero. We do incremental. So we look at the changes and the trends. We take all of it into consideration.
Just on that, if you recall in the budget message, one of the things that we said we were going to implement in light of the ongoing and, the forecasted, economic and environment, and plus the threat of what's happening in Tallahassee, is we were going to implement zero-based budgeting for certain departments, a couple departments each year, and kind of do it as a cycle. It's been my, I can't say direct experience, but those that have tried to do it agency-wide, it has made it a much more lengthy process to do it, and it's very challenging for, I think, everybody to do that. But doing it, it's not my understanding and my experience that what this letter says is that's not happening across the state. Meaning, zero-based budgeting was a product of the federal government at one point in time, back in the late 70s.
Right. So that's one thing. I think our budget office has proven themselves time and time again as to how we manage the county's money. I think we're in pretty good financial shape. I think the sheriff's office has, as long as I've been alive in Henry River County, that has always run pretty darn well. We've been lucky to have some pretty good sheriffs over the years. Thank you, sir, about stuff. And I think we've done pretty well. I still think that, 14 to 12 million is kind of over the top. And one thing I'm disappointed to hear, because the sheriff has not talked to me about his budget at all, not ever. And always in the past has done it. And he's talked to, I think, just to two of y'all, but I don't even think he's even talked to the former sheriff. But I have not spoken with him about his budget at all. And I think a lot of this could have been a lot of time and effort and a lot of people talking could have been saved by having more one-on-ones with the sheriff and find out what we're gonna do. But I still am not comfortable with $12.2 million. I'm around the 6 to 7 million range myself personally. And I'm disappointed to hear that he didn't want to work on a plan of maybe next year we can do an additional 7 million. As far as I'm concerned, it's back to square zero next year as to where we're going to budget the sheriff. Hopefully, we can give him a substantial increase next year, but we don't know what next year holds yet. We'll see, a lot that can happen. So, I'm very frustrated by the whole thing, the innuendos, the false information put out by some of the sheriff's office folks and things like that. I can remember being a firefighter here, and boy, we had our times. And my main man back there in the back with Mr. Zito, we had some times trying to negotiate a contract and get paid, but we all came out of the end. And I don't think we were ever nasty, used information that wasn't factual. About the only serious thing we did is we held picket signs, 15 years ago in front of Station 2 over by the bridge. I think that was about it that we've ever done. But the misinformation, the underhanded innuendos and things like that have got to stop. Nothing good is coming out about it. And I still go back to what I said at the last meeting, 22 million over the last 3 years ain't so bad. And where did that go? And you've said time and time again, it was slated to go for raises. I want to see our people get raises. Those deputies need a raise, and they need a substantial raise. But it doesn't mean we have to do it all at one time. And so I am even more disappointed with the fact that he wasn't interested in even talking about a plan. He wants to stick on 12 million. Let's take it to Tallahassee, boys, because this commissioner ain't willing to go to 12 million.
Well, Commissioner Airman, you just said something we can add to the unprecedented. And I'll say the former sheriff was not an easy guy to work with. Okay, he did make his requests and he did have presentations. But I want to tell you something about every former sheriff. Every former sheriff met with the commissioners. Okay, I know you weren't in the office management budget at the time, but you, in the capacity you serve now, but you can recall that there was input to each and every one of the commissioners.
I was in one during COVID, if I remember.
Yeah. But I remember meeting with the former sheriff. I remember meeting with, actually, I remember meeting with the current sheriff on other occasions about the budget and other information. And on this one, just that once. And so I'm not surprised to hear that you did not hear from him. I didn't. And you and I did.
I did not have an individual budget meeting with the sheriff.
And that is unprecedented as well. Usually when you have something, an ask, and I would think that you would have that. So I just want to add that to the list. And you made another comment about the misinformation. What I mentioned at the beginning of this meeting, most of it was, we don't have deputies at the up center. There's not a mass exodus down to south of the border to other jurisdictions. We're not seeing what we're hearing. And all of what was said, and thing with taking the school lunches so the family could eat, that's not happening, okay? It was, what they say, it was very good for TV, but not so good for radio. And that's the only time I heard on radio is when I heard of where the $21.8 million had gone. And it was rough. It wasn't exact figures. But it was very difficult to do a percentage on what the men and women who serve and deserve received.
I don't really have anything additional to add, other than I think what the additional monies for his budget that's being proposed allows for the focus on the raising of the pay and the payroll, as you guys, I think, can you go back to that slide? So it allows him to do what has been his priority. It is an additional, it is over what he's currently getting. It is in addition to his current budget. I think that allows him, again, to do what he needs to do. And if this is what is out there, then I think that he can address the pay issues that he's having. As far as, what he currently has, this is more than what he has, should allow him to address that. What he currently has can be, he can utilize that as he desires under his priorities, whether that's additional dollars into his employees or additional dollars into technology or whatever he would desire as his budgetary priorities. But I think this gives him more to work with, so we should be able to meet those goals and then prioritize beyond that.
Thank you for your work on this. I know it's been quite extensive, and I appreciate all of your efforts in this regard. Can you just confirm the current number, the increase that we're offering now? Are we at 6.2? Where the dollar
$6 million.
dollar amount million?
It's bullet three, $6 million. I mean, at the last workshop,
Six.
it did show 679, but we'll balance it out.
Okay.
$6,079,000.
Okay.
So we'll balance it out.
Because we discussed just recently, and I believe you provided the information to the other commissioners, that with additional cuts that you had looked into, and thank you again for your time on this, we would be able to come up with 6.852. If anything, I would like to discuss that at this point if everyone has the information. The reason being, I think we need to take a step back and remember it's not the sheriff asking for himself. And this is for the community too, because I think that might have been misunderstood or got lost in the shuffle. My understanding is his salary is determined by the state. So he's not asking for himself, he's asking for the deputies. And I would like to help as many of the deputies as possible. I know even if we are able to go or agree to go to 6.8, that's still not his request. It still does not meet his request. But my view of it is, at least we are able to help as many of the deputies as possible, and that's for him to decide. I would just like to help as many of them as we can. I mean, I do feel very strongly that law and order is the foundation of all things, Not that we should do away with libraries or parks or any of our other social or cultural amenities, but it still is the foundation of everything, law and order. Without that, you can't even have elected government, let alone libraries and museums and things of that sort. So I am open to a discussion of additional cuts to reach 6.852. Thank you.
Let's go back to that cut that you propose, and, when you give it a title, that's an area, and I just want everyone to realize what we're talking about to take that cut. Court administration, that's mental health court, which has other funding mechanisms, so now we'll be forced to go into other arenas to get that funded, because it has been increasingly a large concern. In addition, Animal Services and Humane Society, with what we anticipate before the Animal Services challenge, is we have rather complicated plans to endeavor to service the community for the animal control needs, correct?
That is correct, sir.
So I'm not comparing human beings and dogs or cats, but we do have another grave concern that we're addressing at this point. We'll have to curtail that. And looking at some of the other areas, we're backlogged in Road and Bridge, and I can understand we cut recreation and intergenerational endeavors. I could understand that, but and as well as conservation lands, but that's the operation of the lands. So now the taxpayer is on the hook for that future of conservation, but we won't have anybody to service it. We're taking away personnel from the management. If we learn, and as well as the parks and buildings and facilities, we're taking out individuals, is that correct?
No, sir. In this particular case, the county does not have if you will, a master plan to manage its assets, its facilities. However, our facilities manager, John Evans, has experience in developing one and working on them in the past, along with Anthony, so we are going to do that in-house. We're going to take that expense in-house. It'll add to their workload, but we're going to do it in-house.
I'm talking about the individuals where the rubber hits the road, where, the individuals that have to work in these areas to get the projects done.
That is correct, because it'll divert their attention into multiple areas. And so, yes, it's going to add.
So we're pulling back on all of these items to increase how much on the proposal?
So, no, this is a 6.8. So this is the workshop, this worksheet that two members are looking from. This is the removing the full-time, it's kind of repeating, but really where the additional cuts come from is the animal services, us trying to scale the services down and step into them, recognizing that we're not going to take them all on at in day one. So we're looking at the staffing levels. We do have site visits, some other locations. So we make sure we have the proper staffing to be able to provide for animal services. And then also we increase the reduction to the Humane Society, recognizing that with the contract coming to, we still believe there'll be some form of partnership with the Humane Society. The other items, there's only one other item that's not up there, and I've been very honest with each of you about this and transparent, there's $240,000 that we could add to this to eliminate 1 mile of road resurfacing and paving. I would not recommend that. I caution you heavily. If a road becomes to the point to a total failure and you have to do a full depth reclamation, what costs us $280,000 could jump to 1.1 or more $1 million a mile. So, and then if it impacts, like it didn't already have ADA, safety features, we'd have to increase that, so add those features, accessibility features, and that would increase the cost. So I think the plan to try to get caught up and to bring our roads into a position to where they are being maintained, I think Public Works has made a very good effort this year. I think they're gonna do more than 25 miles, but it's still a scratch, and we're just trying to get the worst conditioned roads repaired, so we're not having to replace them.
You're talking about roads, and just going back to that kicking the can down the road statement. Isn't there a road project that's been around for about 10 years or so that we would be compromising or possibly compromising, or is that intact? I'm talking about 32nd.
32nd Avenue, yes. Aviation Boulevard is one that's on the horizon. I know, Commissioner, I know you're here, like, at that time, when that road is from like county admin, but further, all the way back to to US 1 or to railroad track, that is just stacked up early in the morning, and we see it in the evening the other way. So, I mean, it just, there are some significant roads. Obviously, we have other funding sources, but still, we use the transportation fund and we use the general fund to cover, help, and offset that. We try to leverage the resources as much as possible and seek grants. And I think the county's been successful at doing that, but you're not going to get grants for road resurfacing.
I just wanted to bring it up because you assured me that that one particular project was not compromised in this, but it appears that there will be a few road projects that will be compromised.
I don't want to say road projects that will be compromised. I want to say the road resurfacing efforts would be retarded, meaning being pulled back some. And what happens is, if you recall, we went out and did a condition analysis of all our roadways. And we have a pavement condition index, and we have identified them through a number from 1 all the way up to, I think it's up to 7 or 8. And the lower the number, the worse the condition. And we've been addressing, in large measure, in District 4 and District 5, some of the worst roads in the county, bringing them up to standard. So they're not needing, again, we don't want to get them to a point where they're at a point of failure, because then it requires a full depth reclamation. That means redoing the whole road. It means pulling everything up, putting a new base down. So when you get to that, it goes from, again, maybe 240, 260 to $1.1+ million per mile.
As I stated, when I said compromised, it doesn't mean that the project is done, eliminated, but the roadway is already having integrity issues. And at this point, we would probably delay that a little bit. And if we delay it, it may go into a different mode. So we really should leave that intact. So with those numbers in the adjustment, if we were to go forward with the higher number, there are some sacrifices that will be made for public safety.
Most definitely.
With public safety,
With
for public safety.
Yes.
Because roadways are public safety.
So is animal control. I mean, I think you pointed out in your presentation, almost 5,000 almost 6,000 service calls, 340 animal bites, dog bites. That's a threat to the public welfare.
Again, very difficult to compare and contrast, but unfortunately, those services are very much needed, so we have what we have in Indian River County. And because the sheriff made a point and analysis that without a intact sheriff's office everything else can just go away, because it's gonna go away. We have what we have because, therefore, the sheriff's office exists. Is that fair? That's what was stated?
That's what was stated, but I would think quality of life is a continuum, and it's built upon it. There's foundations, and you have different layers, and I think the public comes to expect, the expectations are to have a vibrant park system, to have safe, operable roads, to have intersections that operate at optimal efficiency to reduce accidents. I think they expect to have a safety net, like where people that are struggling with housing or something like that we have people that can manage the state programs and the resources that we have, that we are managing and protecting our environmental services. 73%, I think it was, voted to acquire environmental lands to conserve and protect. So we need to have the resources to do that. And they voted to issue debt separate from the general fund millage, $50 million.
Thank you. Anything else? Well, is there anybody in attendance that would like to speak? You don't have the sheriff. I know you took the time to be here. No. It's a public hearing.
Good afternoon. I'm trying to learn.
Yeah.
My name is Miguel Dávila Durán, Córdoba, Bermejo. I own international consultant representative. I've been here for the last 20 years. I never have the opportunity to consult with your guys as a professional consultant, carry DEP license. I believe your emphasis under all of these financial situations can be resolved. It doesn't have to make it, that difficult. I think so. This is political motivated. I believe that you have a major issue, as Mr. Fletcher, Chairman Fletcher, announced regarding the water and sewer. I want to let you know that without water and sewer, we all dead. Any place, we have to develop that infrastructure. It's no big deal. I built that before, and it can be resolved. What is the most important thing is safety and security, plus the commodities that we need to survive. I would like to use my knowledge in nuclear and in civil engineering. Okay. What is the composition of water? It's a chemical formula. H2O indicates that each of these molecules contain one oxygen and two hydrogen atoms connected by covalent bonds. The hydrogen atoms are attached to the oxygen atom and at an angle of 104.45 degrees. In the liquid form, H2O is also called water at standard temperature and pressure. I meeting with my association, Florida Groundwater, every year, and it's technology out there. It's not big expensive. Any property owner can afford the new technology, as the John tell you. It's not really expensive. You don't need to take the septic tank out. You have to, use the technology that is available for connecting those. What is most important is where you're gonna get the water, where you're gonna get the commodity. Right now, all the wells are drying up. You know how much costing a well to build to provide water? 12 million, maybe 3 years from now, it's gonna cost you $20 million. If the aquifer is not replenished, we're gonna be running out of water. So I don't know if you ever see a burst in a sewer pipe. It's a bomb. When it explodes that thing, it's like a hydrogen bomb because of it's not enough water to move the sewer. What I recommend you guys is, I'm sorry, your professional team, is to dedicate more time and efforts to what we really need to survive water. Eventually, you have to find where we're gonna get surface water. That canal we have there, it cannot provide water to everybody. You may have to go to Sebastian River, or you may have to build other very expensive systems, salt water conversion that costs millions of dollars. So,
Mr. DeVella,
yeah,
thank you. And when
Okay.
we're dealing with the
yeah, but
water issue, we'll
yeah,
we'll most certainly invite your input.
these issues can be resolved. It's not big deal. You understand?
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Have a nice day. You too. My license DEP 11341. Okay, have a nice day.
Thank you. Duly noted.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Thank you for your time. My name's Tony Consolo. I am a retired captain with Indian River County Sheriff's Department, a 50-year resident of this community. I have an economics degree from Emory University. I'm not saying that to pat myself on the back. I'll come back to that at the very end. There was some horrific events that occurred at Emory University last week and in Georgia. The first thing I want to do is kind of clarify some stuff that went on at the last board meeting, okay? 2019, and I'm just going to call out some figures, $1,583, 2024, $2,564. 2019, $2,248, 2024, $3,605. 2019, $1,665, 2024, $2,656, and 2019, $4,215, 2024, $4,574. Those are taxes that my family's paid on residences that they own in this county. Tax increases every year, okay? We talked about that, so I just want to say taxes have increased. I understand that it's because property taxes increased. That's done, millage rate is staying the same, but taxes did increase. Second thing I'd like to bring up is, and you've answered a little bit of this, John. I appreciate for that, and I'm sorry if I call you John. I don't know how to pronounce your last name exactly, so. Dealt with, did the board find any errors in the sheriff's budget being either mathematical errors, mechanical errors, factual, clerical, or errors in the form of his submission?
So we have received a bevy of spreadsheets that I've requested consistent with statute. And they do not budget at the sub-object level, so it's kind of difficult. But we are still going through the analysis. If we find any, actually, we found some early on that we provided.
I remember that.
They
You stepped
corrected.
outside, sure.
And we would do the same again.
Okay. All right. My second question, you actually answered this, John, earlier, dealt with the sheriff's request for you guys to put into writing anything that you were going to either eliminate, reduce, increase, or anything like that. Apparently, that's not required until the September budget hearing. Okay. Last time I was here, I told you all that I found areas that could be decreased in his budget. I still agree that there's areas that can be cut. I mentioned the jiu-jitsu training last time. I'm just going to give you two other examples that I found recently, because if you do have to respond to those in writing, here's some things. So there's a $50,000 request for 8 flock cameras on Oslo Road 995 interchange. It's my understanding that the interchange won't even be completed until 2027. A very simple thing, we could push that off to 2027. Okay, another thing, there's a $1.2 million request for Airmark, which is food for inmates and staff. I did some research today. FDOC has over 100,000 inmates, and it costs them $2.62 per day per inmate. Polk County Sheriff's Department has a budget of $2.1 million for 2,400 inmates, costs them approximately $3 per day. So there's some obvious cuts that can be made, okay, is the amount of money we spend to feed the inmates and our staff at the jail. Commissioner Fleischer, I do have to say something. I'm a little disappointed. The fact that you brought up the issue with the food stamps, that was not a comment that the sheriff made. That was a comment made by a deputy that had a handicapped child.
Didn't say the sheriff made it.
Okay, and okay, but you said you doubt that they're on there, which is indicating that that potential law enforcement officer was not truthful. The second one dealt with somebody that made a comment regarding taking home money or food from the school. That was also done by someone, not the sheriff, but indicating that you don't think that that happened. I believe that was Darrell Rivers because he was a school resource officer, and I think he said it, okay? Not sure, but I find it difficult for you to say you don't think that's happening, because the people that got up here, when you say that, you're saying you don't trust what they got up here and said. I think that's a slippery slope, and we shouldn't be doing that, okay? Okay. So some more research and just a possibility, I haven't researched this enough. The tourist tax, it's my understanding that if a county has a certain percentage of the county that borders water, might be available for some of the marine-related issues in a budget. I don't know if it can be used for regular budgetary situations, or if we have like a regatta or something like that, if there's any special things, but that might be something that we can look into. Sales tax. I would recommend that you use some of the sales tax for the capital items. Let's see what else. Oh, while you have this on the board, full-time staff assistant, $64,854. Guest service
That
attendant.
includes benefits and everything.
Okay, I was going to
It's
ask.
not just salary.
I was going to ask if that included benefits and so forth. Okay. Can you tell me how much of that is benefits? Or what's the salary? Let's put it that way.
Like 50,000, maybe less than that.
Usually minus 1.5.
Okay. So the salary is probably pretty close to what a deputy's making, I'm guessing.
I don't know if it's
Not
that.
quite?
Yeah, they're going to look it up. I don't know.
Okay.
And I will say, optional sales tax, we use exclusively for capital.
Right.
What is already used for the sheriff?
Yes, and what's used for sheriff's office. There's a, part of his budget includes optional sales tax, both that and building impact fees for the building of the new
Is there an
administration
additional, I'm sorry, go ahead, I'm
for
sorry.
the new administration building, as well as his rolling stock, the vehicles and the radios.
Is there an additional surtax that's not the sales tax? There was something I was reading that could be used for like jail, for facilities and so forth in the county.
Impact fees?
Yes.
We levy impact fees, and the correctional impact fees have been used to build some of those modules. And the salary is $39,000 roughly. That's the amount.
Can some additional, besides the modules and so forth, can it be used for anything else besides like physical facilities or anything along those lines?
Well, it's all related to growth. People pay an impact fee for their impact to the system. So the correctional fees would be used for the building, the correctional facilities. We do use public building fees, impact fees. We've used some of that, I believe, and optional sales tax for the purposes of funding the building of the new administration office building.
Other than that, again, like everyone stated, I truly believe that, safety and security of the community is a priority for all of us. I know that you guys, all of you support law enforcement, so please don't take this wrong. I know you all support law enforcement and understand the value that it brings this community. I do want to say I brought that aspect up regarding being at Emory University. And the reason I say that is, let's see if I have it. I thought I wrote it down. So there were two issues in Georgia this past week. It was a shooting in Fort Stewart, and there was a shooting on Emory University's campus at the CDC, at the CVS building. Okay, Brian Kemp, Republican governor for Georgia, made a statement that every time a situation like this happens, we realize the value of law enforcement. And I just want us all to consider, every member of the community, to understand the value of law enforcement and how important it is to the community. Okay, thank you for your time, I appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Consulo. I appreciate that. And you mentioned about me. I never said that they lied, and I never said that the sheriff made those statements. But
you doubt whether it was true, or you doubted it.
one person's taking food, okay? One person's taking food does not justify a $15 million increase. I just want you to know, we did have a little bit of drama here, okay? To play on the heartstrings of the public and all of us. I understand that. Okay? You know, we're gonna talk about a free cup of coffee now? Or, you know, what they're doing? No. There was no aspersion, okay? I apologize if it came that way. No. We were played. Thank you. And I'll stand by that. Okay, this room was filled. This room was filled. Have a good day. Okay. Anyone else? Okay, with that, do we have to have a consensus here as to what we're going to do if we leave it where it was at, or we consider the increase, which then would be offset by some other decreases.
I'll just, for the record, my recommendation is to stick with the 6 million, just over, because I am concerned with the priorities that the community's expressed as they call you, and then you reach out to us, and you reach out to Public Works, and some of these other ones, the Animal Services, the Humane Society. I think they're pretty significant in this upcoming year.
I'd still like to go with the 6.8.
Can you repeat that, Commissioner Moss?
I'd still like to go with the increase of 6.8 that we see here. And that increase does not include another mile of road. I know that was discussed, but this does not reflect that. We're not doing that with this.
And your thoughts, Commissioner Adams?
I'm fine with the administrator's recommendation.
With the administrator's recommendation.
I'm okay with anything up to 7 million. That's my top. That 7 million, that would be the top. And I'm okay with 6 million. I'm okay with that too. I'm just, whatever it takes to reach a deal, but anywhere from 6 to 7 million, I'm good.
And I'll be honest, this is my third county budget, but I don't believe between now and September 10th, there is any opportunity to continue the discussions, because they become shorter and shorter in duration.
Well,
It's a matter of,
my
Can you make-
understanding is we have to give you a number today, because you have to build
Publish
that
a budget.
budget and put that out for the 2 budget hearings in September. So you need a consensus from us of what you want us to advertise, is the ask today, correct?
yes, that was going to be my second
So
point.
So
It's
can't
gotta
be
be-
6 or 7.
And it's got to be clear on what, I'm so sorry, go ahead.
Yes, no, it cannot be, I'm up to including 7 million or 6 million. The county administrator needs direction so that we can close this workshop and he can move forward to the next hearing.
And it needs to be specific as to what will be cut, so you can correctly reflect that in the budget that has to be advertised, correct? So just for clarification.
We did have an opportunity, the county administrator had an opportunity to discuss a few times with the sheriff, and I don't know where that number might have brought any sort of resolve. Did you have any indication, Mr. Chicanich, that if it was bumped to the next number, that it would be satisfied, or should we go back to what the sheriff stated here, that fully funded, he's done with us, fully funded, or I'm just going to the governor?
I've presented this scenario, and he has replied, fully funded.
Right. So, Mr. Chair, whatever number we come up with today,
That's a,
it really doesn't matter because it appears that, he said it somewhere around $90 million. The only thing I think the consensus is that we would not go to $90 million.
correct.
So it sounds like whatever number we instruct the administrator today is going to be challenged.
Right.
And in saying that, if we're going to be challenged, why would we cut vital components of our agency? So with that, I would go with the administrator's recommendation.
And then the number that the administrator has given us, and you could repeat that number, as far as the budget is concerned, it has been ascribed that that will allow the sheriff to give increases of what to the deputies?
So, and again,
Go back
it's,
to that slide.
Yeah.
so this is what they're,
I just want to clear, because
this
these
is the
people just tuning
request,
in.
generally speaking, and let me just pull this. What do I do with it? So this is the request generally, and our calculations, and I think at the last meeting, I think the CFO agreed that 1.5 as a benefit multiplier for deputies was appropriate, and 1.25 for the civilians. So by raising the, by a $9,000 across the board increase, that would have to be averaged across these deputy sergeants and lieutenants, $9,000 across the board would, with the benefit multiplier of 1.5% would be about 4.9 million. For 30, and then for the 190 civilians, a $3,500 raise is about 600, with benefit multiplier 1.25 is about 831, so it comes out to 5.75875 is what it comes out to as it relates to salaries. And that's where we were asking if he could phase it to enhance, if he was, it needed more operating.
So that listing for the deputy sergeant and lieutenants at 13%, 11%, 11%, is pale to the proposed 20% plus. It was like 21 point.
Yes, that's, added that.
That's at the
your-
15 million.
The column on the left is what happened over the last 3 years, the average increases for those specific categories. Civilians, 77, and then the respective amounts for the sworn personnel. So in other words, the lieutenants on average received $17,825 over the last 3 years. Not each year, but collectively over the 3-year period.
Just so the public knows that if we're giving you consensus on that number, which the sheriff is aware, that is what their increase will be.
Well, this is what they are proposing, depending on how they implement. I mean, because what I just showed.
Well, we've learned that too.
Yeah.
The money doesn't always go to,
Well,
Where
in
it's earmarked.
fairness, I recommended $3,500 for civilians. They're looking at $5,400. I recommended $9,000. Well, that may cover the deputies, but then you see the sergeants at $94,470 average, and then the lieutenants at $11,265 on average. So so mine is across the board, was an across the board raise scenario.
Across the board, 3,500 civilians across the board, keep everything relative.
And that would also raise the starting pay to $59,619.
and he balked on that. That's a substantial increase. I don't know too many people in the private sector.
It'd be nice if we could work towards next year of increasing that more, but apparently.
Yes,
I have to agree with what Commissioner Lohr says. I don't think we could come up with a number that would make him happy today.
Correct. Whatever we come up with doesn't matter. He's already indicated that he's apparently going to a different level, so no matter what number we come up with.
That being said, I think you need a number, right?
Yes,
You
and
need a number
recommendation is
for
the
the
6
budget.
million.
And in addition to that, for me, I think it shows that we're trying, it shows goodwill, it shows that we are attempting to, have a good relationship.
I think you have a consensus.
I think we have it appears that we have a consensus to go with the county administrator's recommendation.
Correct.
Would you agree with that?
I agree.
That would be the
I mean,
consensus?
6 million to 7 million, wherever he wants to put it.
What?
And if you
No,
want me to say
no,
6
no,
million, I'll say, I'd rather say 6 million. 6 million would be better than
For the
7.
original number?
Yes, 6 million.
But but if he can come up and not affect it with a little bit more, that's fine.
Commissioner Adams?
Yes, the administrator's recommendation.
Commissioner Moss?
I'm at 6.8.
And I want to go with the original recommendation.
So, thank you. So with that, we would like to announce that the preliminary budget hearing, at which you'll set the tentative, or you'll set the millage rate, is September 10th, 2025 at 5:01 PM in these chambers. The final budget hearing is September 17th at 5:01 PM in these chambers. And we are
Thank you.
concluded for today. Thank you. I want to thank the board.
Anything
wanna
further
thank our
from the
staff.
Office of Management and Budget?
Yes.
Anything further from the board?
Thank you, ladies.
At this time, you've announced the next hearing. This meeting is adjourned.